The Canadian Grand Prix returns to Formula One for the first time since 2019, and we see Max Verstappen once again pick up another victory in 2022. What's going on, guys? It's Daniel, and welcome back to our video. I just got done watching the Canadian Grand Prix from Circuit Gilles Villeneuve. We're going to go ahead and talk about the race. There's a lot to talk about from it. Let's go ahead and talk about it. So, for the green flag drop, a bunch of drivers really struggled in qualifying. The front row was Max Verstappen and Fernando Alonso, who put together a very strong performance. And you have Carlos Sainz and Lewis Hamilton on row number 2. Charles Leclerc, who actually qualified 14th, he would have to drop back 5 positions due to changing, I believe, a gearbox or changing the engine of the car. He would start 19th in the race. And Sergio Perez, the other championship contender, I believe crashed in qualifying the day before and had to start 13th. So on the start of the race, you have Max Verstappen lead field from the inside and Fernando Alonso on the outside. And we saw Max Verstappen basically take off and really drive away from the field. He got about a 4 or 5 second lead. Then the first caution race, the virtual safety car came out on lap number 10 for, unfortunately, Sergio Perez. Sergio Perez had pretty much, I believe, jumped inside the top 10, and unfortunately, he would basically fall out of the race, end up finishing last. Then we got some strategy in this race where guys like Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton came down pit road, while guys like Carlos Sainz and Fernando Alonso decided to go ahead and stay out, and that played a little bit of strategy. Eventually, though, Max Verstappen, I believe, got up to second past Fernando after the virtual safety car happened. And then the second virtual safety car happened for Mick Schumacher, who was actually in a points position. He would bring out the next virtual safety car out in this race and unfortunately would fall out of contention. And we saw a little bit more strategy where Carlos Sainz decided to be the opposite of what Max Verstappen did, and Verstappen decided to stay out while Carlos Sainz came down pit road. Then we went back racing on with Max Verstappen basically leading the race, and he would dominate this portion. Now, Carlos Sainz, Lewis Hamilton, I believe also another driver, and George Russell were actually all starting to really catch the race leader, Max Verstappen. And as the run went on, Carlos Sainz Jr. basically made up a ton of ground. He was at first not really making up a lot of ground. He was making up maybe 1/10 a second per lap, 2/10. But near the end of the run with around 25-30 laps to go, he started making up 4 to 5/10 every single lap. And eventually, Max Verstappen, because the tires really started falling off and he complained about the tires, he would come down the road with around 30 laps to go in this race. And this would hand the lead to Carlos Sainz. Eventually, basically, he was sent basically behind Lewis Hamilton second, then eventually got around him. And when Lewis Hamilton, he came down pit road. And then next lap later, George Russell came down pit road. So at the time, we thought this race was going to come down if Carlos Sainz can end out for 50 laps on the older tires, or if Max Verstappen could catch it. Well, the race would change with around 20 laps to go as Verstappen was actually catching Carlos Sainz. Yuki Tsunoda, who is technically somewhat of a teammate to Max Verstappen, because the AlphaTauri organization is basically a second satellite team to the Red Bull organization. Yuki Tsunoda would come off pit road with around 15-20 laps to go, and he would crash out. Because of the safety car coming out, basically this would change the game because Carlos Sainz, he would come down the road and would drop to second. And now Max Verstappen on the restart, he tried to pull away to about a second on the restart when they went back racing. And Verstappen did get away a little bit. But Carlos Sainz started making up a ton of ground. Every lap, it really was a back-and-forth situation where you had Carlos Sainz really making up ground, and another lap, Max Verstappen started to pull away. He was really better in certain areas of the track. Sector 2, he was much quicker, and in Sector 3, he got that massive run down the major final straightaway. Before he got to the final straightaway, he was getting a massive run. Eventually, Max Verstappen pulled out to almost a second at one point, and then Carlos Sainz really started closing in. With around 2 laps to go in this race, Carlos Sainz was actually near the back bumper, about 4 or 5/10 of a second, right behind Carlos Sainz, basically Max Verstappen. And then in the final hairpin of the race, unfortunately, he would basically lose a ton of ground and got loose and lost a ton of ground, and Max Verstappen basically pulled away from him. And that would basically do it. And coming out the final corner on the last lap of the race, Carlos Sainz tries to close in, but he pulls a basically is now over second back. And coming out the final corner, Max Verstappen, after once again dominating another Formula One race, he picks up his 26th career victory, jumps to definitive 9th position, I believe, on the list of the all-time winners, and is now only one behind Jackie Stewart. He wins his first Canadian Grand Prix. Max Verstappen also with this win is now 46 points ahead of Sergio Perez, who fell out of the race, and also now I believe he's around 50 points ahead of Charles Leclerc. So he's now nearly 2 races at full races ahead of Sergio Perez. Of course, he would have to win those races. He's now nearly 2 races ahead of Sergio Perez in points. Massive congratulations to Max Verstappen on picking up the victory. Like I mentioned, his 26th career Formula One victory, and did that in really dominating fashion. He did have to hold off a really hard charging Carl Sainz, who was on fresher tires as well. He picks up a massive victory, and I believe that is Max's 5th or 6th win this year in Formula One, because Leclerc's got 2 victories this year, and Sergio Perez has 1 victory. So he now has pulled out to a massive points lead, especially after Sergio Perez basically fell out of contention in this race. So now let's go through the results of this race, and then give you my score of today's race. So Max Verstappen picks up the victory. Carl Sainz Jr. finished second. What is it going to take Carl Sainz to win a race? Sainz has been so close to winning these races. He was extremely fast today. This is the best performance Carl Sainz has really put in since the beginning of the season, really since the Monaco GP a couple weeks ago. But it still was a really strong run regardless in second position. He really needed this run and gets a really strong second place. Lewis Hamilton finished the third. How about that for Lewis? I believe that's only Lewis's second or third podium finish so far of the 2022 season. So it's great when Lewis Hamilton has a good run. I know Mercedes has generally been struggling this year, and Lewis Hamilton is pretty much out of championship now, as he's 98 points outside the championship at the moment. But he'll be going in the British Grand Prix in Silverstone and trying to win there on the 4th of July weekend. He'll be looking to have a good run. He gets a really strong third place finish. George Russell finished this fourth. George Russell was pretty fast all day long. I think generally most of the year he's been faster than Lewis Hamilton, but this week, for whatever reason, he was not faster than Hamilton. But he also continues his top 5 streak of finishing every single race inside the top 5. Really solid run for George Russell. Charles Leclerc, after basically starting 19th in the race, he drove all the way up to 5th position, basically trying to limit the damages of the points he was going to lose in this race. He did lose 15 points in this race, but he gets a really strong comeback in 5th position. Amazing run for Charles Leclerc, comeback in 5th place. Esteban Ocon gets a very solid 6th place position. Fernando Alonso finishes 7th. Alonso's car just really wasn't that great most of the day, and I think keeping out as long as they did really took him out of contention, but still finishes 7th. Another point save for Fernando Alonso. Valtteri Bottas finishes 8th. Decent run for Valtteri Bottas in the Alfa Romeo team. Guan Yu Zhou has, I believe, a career performance today. He was really running 9th and 10th for most of his race and gets his 2nd points finish of the season so far. Great run for Guan Yu Zhou in 9th position. Lance Stroll gets the last points of the day. He finishes in 10th. Good run for Lance Stroll in Aston Martin team. Danny Ricciardo finishes in 11th. Sebastian Vettel finishes 12th. He has to go visit stewards after the race with safety car infringements near the end of the race. Pierre Gasly finishes in 13th as Alex Albon, carrying the Williams team so far this year. Pierre Gasly finishes in 14th. Lando Norris, who really struggled today, he finishes in 15th. Shame because the quadrant guys were at the racetrack today. It's a shame for him. Nicholas Latifi finishes in 16th. Kevin Madison, after having some issues earlier where he had actually got black flag with a black and orange cross flag, had to come down the road and get that damage fixed. That unfortunately took him out of contention. He finishes in 17th. Yuki Tsunoda, after crashing out, he finishes in 18th. Mick Schumacher, after having engine failures and electrical issues, he finishes in 19th. And finishing last in 20th place is Sergio Perez. So now let's talk about the overall race as a whole and give you my score of today's race. Honestly, this race was solid. It wasn't spectacular by any stretch of the imagination, and there was a lot of good racing throughout the field at points and stuff, but it wasn't absolutely amazing. It was solid, but not amazing for me. But I'm very happy to see the Canadian Grand Prix is back. It's been 3 years since the Canadian Grand Prix happened, and really the energy and the spectacle of the event, seeing all those fans extremely excited. Every time you saw those cars coming across, you could hear the fans screaming. But the racing itself, especially near the end, it kind of gave me vibes of what Joey Logano and Kevin Harvick basically had, where basically Max was just quicker in the corners, but Carlos is better on the straightaways. Overall, my score of today's F1ers, I'm going to give it overall 6.5 out of 10. There could have been a little more action in the beginning and the end, but you did have some action on the restarts and such. In the final restart, Carlos Sainz really tried to get there, and I really wanted Carlos to win that race. But massive congratulations to Max Verstappen on picking up the victory. 6.5 out of 10 is my score. So, anyway, that is for today's race review from Montreal Circuit Gilles Villeneuve for the Canadian Grand Prix. I want to thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, notification on to be notified when a video does go live on my channel. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and support me on pages. I'll list schedule below that and comment your thoughts on today's video. What are your thoughts about the Canadian Grand Prix? Let me know below. Let me know your score in the comments below, and congratulate Max Verstappen on picking up the victory. Let me know in the comments below. Tomorrow on my channel, we're going to have a NASCAR news and motorsports news video. We'll discuss everything that's been happening over the last couple of days. We really don't have much to discuss. We do have some stuff to discuss for sure. Tuesday will be race picks for Nashville, and then Wednesday will probably once again be another NASCAR news video on the channel as we transition back to having Nashville. We're about 10 weeks away from the playoffs. We get back to that. So anyway, like I said, I want to thank you guys for watching today's video, and I'll see you guys next time for some more awesome NASCAR and other motorsports content like SRX and F1 on the channel like this. Take care, everybody.